Hello and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. The sprinklers just turned off in my garden and it's actually a really nice evening out here. Evenings are the best time of day to be out here anyway, just because it gets so hot in the middle of the day. The sun is setting and I just think that it is a perfect time to show off the garden, what it looks like in June. I actually think it's been doing really well this year, despite being behind on a couple of crops. I'm really liking the way that it's looking, and Nutmeg, of course, loves being out here with me, so we're gonna go give a tour of the whole garden. We'll just quickly go over the little fruit orchard over here. The peaches are done. They're not producing anymore. Their peaches were delicious. I really liked them. The plum, of course, is doing nothing. And the bay leaf tree is growing slightly. I will use a nutmeg for size here. So it's growing. It's got really nice bright green new growth on it, but it is still small. Overall, the orchard is doing pretty well. Moving on to the pepper beds, they are finally full with all of the peppers that I got while I was in Pennsylvania. There are a couple that are producing in this bed. I think most notably this one. This is supposed to be sriracha, which I've never grown before. There have been some leaf cutter bees getting to these plants, but they usually go away. They really like newer transplants, and that's why they've kind of attacked the ones in this bed. But Nutmeg enjoys hanging out in here, even though it is a little wet. I did put in a milkweed. I know that's probably bad because I already have so much volunteer milkweed in the garden, but I didn't have this color, and I like collecting new colors. So I do have that as my most recent addition. I put this in last week. So this bed's doing really well. I do think next year this won't be a pepper bed, just because when I have something like this thyme that starts to take over, I run out of space for peppers. So I might do something different with this area next year. Next to it, my shishitos are doing really well. These are the new ones, so they're not producing yet. But all of these back here, I need to pick these. Like, I am so far behind picking my peppers. They're so ripe. So I have a lot that I need to go through. And then once I pick these, they'll probably produce more, just because they have a lot on there right now. So I might do that after this video or tomorrow, but that's on my to-do list. As far as the large pepper bed goes, it's also doing really well. I like how all of these peppers are mostly looking. The Tabascos are ripening up, so I'm very excited to start eating them. The blue salvia is doing great, and I have a few peppers growing in this one. This is one of my overwintered peppers. This is the Aji Rico. This is like a really nice big bushy plant. As you can see, an overwintered pepper versus one that's not is just gonna be leaps and bounds ahead. So I'm really all for that. My jalapeno as well is overwintered right here, the Mucho Nacho, and I just have jalapenos all over it. I already gave some away. That's just how many I have. And then this one was also overwintered, but in a different way. I started it as a baby in October, so it is a little bit more behind. I have been harvesting my leeks. They are sizing up really nicely. They've been really tasty. And then of course, I have all of my different candy cane bell peppers. So here's a really nice one, and one over here. I really like the variegation on this plant in particular. It's just looking really nice. I just prefer to have more on these just because they don't live as long as like my house plants, and they do really well in the heat and the full sun when they have a lot of white on them. So they're doing really well. In front of it in the garden, I have my cayenne peppers that are slowly getting taken over by my marigolds, but like, I'm not gonna complain about that because these are so pretty. They're all volunteer marigolds. I did finally harvest. I had a really big cayenne that had grown bigger than this one, and this one's really big. This is my overwintered one, and it's the one overwintered pepper plant that is putting out a lot of flowers, but so far no peppers, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but everything is doing really well. Nutmeg, of course, is enjoying an evening stroll in the garden. He could be out here all day, all night, and he would just be a happy boy. I do also have, just a quick note, a couple of volunteer tomatoes in here, and I've decided I'm just gonna leave them be and see what happens. So that's it for all of the peppers in the garden. I have them sectioned off in this area here. Next to it, I have my noodle beans. You might remember if you were following the channel last year, I grew these for the first time, and these are ready. So I could pick these if I wanted to. That's about the size that you want. If I want them for drying seeds, I can keep growing them until they get really long and really big. I saved a lot of seeds last year, so if I can avoid it, I'm not going to do that this year. I'm sure when I go away for a week in July, I'm gonna have some that get overripe, and that's fine, but for the most part I really want to eat these, so I'm very happy with the progress that these have made. I have new ones forming every day. These are gonna flower tomorrow, so it's just a very busy time for the noodle beans. They have already climbed to the top of this trellis, and they just keep climbing. They're doing great, so I'm very happy about that. I still have my kohlrabi in here, even though they're not really growing anymore. It just prevents them from going bad in my fridge, and I can pull them up and eat them whenever. I also have a couple edamame plants. They're just not doing as well in this bed this year, so I'm thinking the next batch that I plant, I'm gonna move to a different bed. In front of it, this bed is kind of a mix of different things. My scallions, I have never seen scallions this big, so I definitely need to eat these soon. They almost look like leeks, they're so big, but that means they're doing really well and they like living here. I have some determinate tomatoes, I have volunteer basil, I have beets, I have parsnips, and then I tried this year the Chinese red noodle bean, exactly the same as the other beans over here, but these are just red. I think they're going to be more of a purpley color just based on what I'm seeing here, but they are starting to develop that color as they grow. When the first ones came out, they were looking a little green, but I'm starting to see more and more color, and there are more blooms happening every single day. See right here, this looks a little green, but I think it's going to develop that color as it grows. So these are both doing really, really well. This one equally likes the heat, and I did plant it a week later, so it's just starting to reach the top of the trellis, but it's doing really well nonetheless. Moving on to the other side of the trellis, this has been completely taken over by watermelons, and this is my fault because I planted 10, 12 watermelon plants in here. Oh gosh, it's attaching to itself and my tomatoes. Okay, so I do have tomatoes in here as well. This is the white currant from Baker Creek Seeds, and it got snapped in a tornado, and I just kind of let it branch out after that. So it's got like 5 or 6 shoots coming out of it, and I'm trying to see, this is an experiment, if I can get my tomatoes to climb a trellis like this. So that's the biggest one I have. I have a few other small tomato plants in here as well, but they are slowly getting drowned out just by all of the watermelons, and there are a lot of watermelons growing in here right now. There's a little one, but I have some big ones off to the side here. This has doubled in size since yesterday even, which is crazy to think about, but I have that one, and then I have a couple more over there. I have some scattered throughout this bed. I lose track of them and then I find them again, and they're just doing really well. I was not expecting to have so many, and I have planted 6 different types of watermelons. Let me see, 2 yellow, 2 red, and no, 5, and orange. So all doing very well. Very excited to see what happens with them. Next to it, I have my corn. I have been harvesting, and then when I harvest, I pull up the plant and plant new ones. So I did just yesterday plant some new seeds. I basically have just been harvesting when the silks dry out, and I don't have like a perfect ear of corn yet, but this is the first year I'm growing corn. I'm learning that you really want to plant a lot at once, not just a couple rows, and that is something I'm going to do in the future, but I'm getting corn and it tastes really good, so I'm gonna consider that a win. I also love the touch of color that the purple stalks add to my garden. That's another bonus. In this bed, I also have some basil. I have fennel that I have let go. I'm gonna let it go to seed. The swallowtails also really like it. And then I have some cucumbers and gherkins that are growing really fast now. I have harvested a couple so far. It's hard for me to tell what kind they are because they're so mixed up together, but they're doing pretty well. I think we'll get some good harvests out of these for about a month or two until it gets too hot in July, and then it'll just kind of go and die off, and I'll think of something else to plant here. But for now, it's doing really well, and typically this late in the year, it's not looking this green and lush, so I'm very happy with how the cucumbers are doing this year as opposed to last year. Next to it, I have one of my perennial herb beds. I have a bronze fennel that I've let go to seed, and fennel seed is a common herb in Italian cooking, common spice, I guess you could say, so I'm going to save that. I have my sage growing into each other. This oregano is almost done blooming. I did start chopping it back over there so it could grow again. I have rosemary. Parsley is still hanging on, and I did lose my nasturtium there, so that's unfortunate. The blackberries are almost done. I don't have any new flowers. I have some berries that are still ripening that I have covered up, but for the most part, they're done, and I'm very sad about it because we had about a month and a half of just wonderful blackberry harvest. It was doing so well. I also have some volunteer milkweed in here, which I think is hilarious because some of the other plants I had in this bed with the blackberries are not doing as well. The hyssop has to crawl out of the bed to get some light, same with the rue. So the fact that I have a milkweed just growing right in the middle of this is kind of funny to me. But next to it, I have my asparagus bed, and this is kind of what I'm planning to do is I'm gonna take these out, the Swiss chard, at the end of the season and put them where I had those peppers. But I also have some basil back here as well as some dill, which I have used a few times for a few Greek dishes, and it is doing very well, tastes great. So not too much to report because there's not a lot producing in this bed right now. Next to it, I have my other herb bed, which is starting to fill in a lot more for the season. The lemongrass looks so good. I feel like I'm almost at the point where they're thick enough to start eating, so I'm very pleased with that. The oregano is blooming. There's a nutmeg growing very well out here. Hi, bud. Yeah. So this oregano is a different color bloom than the other ones, and then I do have some black sesame. I had a couple plants in here, but one died. I do have another seedling that I started I'm gonna bring out here soon. And then of course the artichokes that just never do anything for me and make me really sad. So there's that. The carrots are carrots. They are starting to flower, so these are not good enough to eat anymore. I'm gonna just let them flower, but then when they're done, I'll snip them off so I don't run into this next year. I'm really trying to avoid that. I do have a couple celery plants in here from Baker Creek Seeds, the Chinese white celery. I think they're enjoying being in the shade a little bit right now. And then I did start a couple rows of corn in here. They're starting to break through where the carrots were. I've been pulling a lot of carrots from this area just so I can have some corn breakthrough. And then I have my strawberry bed. I am going to remove this kale, I think, at the end of the season because it's just going insane. This one too, I might actually remove. I have been getting some strawberries. I did just pick a bunch yesterday, so I don't think there's anything to report here right now, but they're doing really well. Tomatillos keep getting knocked over, so I don't know, they're a mess. I am gonna start getting tomatillos off of them soon, but this is just, it worked really well using these trellises last year, but this year they just are not staying in the ground. So I'm not sure if there's a better way that I can grow these next year because they are very messy. Over here I have my tomatoes. I'm not really proud of how they look, but these plants also got broken up a bit when we had the tornadoes coming through. So I've just let the ones that were already big and established go wild. I've never let a tomato go crazy like this before, and I'm not sure I'm gonna do that again because this is impossible to work with. The disease is spreading a lot faster, even though every few days I come out here and I chop leaves. It's just a big mess, and I don't have a ton of tomatoes. I have a lot of flowers right now, so maybe I'll get some tomatoes later, but right now it's really messy. I do have some other tomato plants that are starting to mature and flower, like the yellow pear, and then I have a few in here as well. Yesterday I finally transplanted this seedling of this Amish paste tomato, so I'm really looking forward to that, as well as this orange accordion. This one's from M.I. Gardner. This one's from Baker Creek Seeds. And then from a local Hoya seller, I got these mushroom brisket tomatoes. I've been trying to keep them safe because I only got 2, and I'm so grateful she gave them to me, but I'm really working on keeping them safe and sound just so that I actually get to try these tomatoes because she said they were amazing. I also have my sweet potatoes doing really well. They're starting to cover up this whole area and trying to branch out. I have to keep moving these tendrils back in because the more they move in, the more sweet potatoes I can get. So these are doing really well. I have the squash bed. The squash are actually doing okay. This one fell over, so I need to stake it up. But I haven't had as many of the squash vine borers right now. I did harvest a squash out of here, the yellow straight neck. And then this one back here, it's kind of hard to see. It has a lot of male flowers right now, but it does look healthy. So maybe I'm thinking this tarp is working. I don't know. I'm hoping it is, because if not, I cannot grow squash here. Like, this is my last attempt before I give up, but so far it's been going pretty well. I was about to rip these out because this one had a lot of the vine borers in it, but I must have killed them all because these plants look really healthy right now. And of course there is a really cute nutmeg hanging out. He loves hanging out in the corn. He'll hide in there every morning when we come out and just stare at the birds all day. I had to show it to him. He didn't realize he was hanging out under the blackberries, which is a really great spot to hide as well. But I showed him the corn one morning, and ever since he's been obsessed with hiding in the corn, watching for birds. I call him my child of the corn as he's standing on my little blackberry plant. Oh, nutmeg. But I think these are starting to fill out too, so he's just loving hanging out in this bed. I think this is a really good hideout for him. It's just very enriching for him to be out here, and it really fits his personality. He needs a lot more mental stimulation. He's just a very smart cat, so being out here is really good for him, and I just wanted to show him having fun because he is in a really good mood right now, and he's being really sweet. Oh, good boy. Yeah, I would say the corn has become his favorite plant out here for sure. Over by the seedling table, I don't have much to report right now. My blackberry bush is doing well. It's focusing on new growth. I've got a couple of new vines growing on it, or tendrils, whatever you call them with a blackberry bush. And I'm really hoping over the summer it just gets really big and full so that next year I get a good harvest of blueberries. I also have my African blue basil that has been flowering. I did put one in my pollinator garden out front as well, and the bees have been loving it out there. As far as the seedling table itself goes, I have a couple of small tomatoes. They're cherry tomatoes I'm looking to put out. This is the black sesame. It's almost ready to go out. It's starting to get a little leggy. I have another eggplant right here, and then I have been working on some leeks. I like to succession sow them, so whenever I pull one up, I'm gonna plant these in the ground. They're just a little small right now, so I'm hoping in about a week I should be able to get the next ones in the ground. And then my onion harvest is just about done curing. These are the ones that need longer, but these are just about ready to bring inside. That is on my to-do list to process them, so hopefully I'll get that done soon. It looks like we just finished up this garden tour in time because the sun has set. It is starting to get darker out here, but I'm so happy with how my garden is looking right now, and I'm just very excited to start harvesting this produce. I'm getting peppers, tomatoes, beans, cucumbers. It really feels like summer has set in, even though it's just the beginning of summer here. But if you like this video, make sure to give Nutmeg and I here a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here on the channel. Thank you again, and we'll catch you in the next one.